Hey, it's Michael, and I'm back with another video. And in this video, I wanted to talk about something that I get asked quite a bit, and that is, how much life insurance do I really need anyway? So I'm going to give you 7 easy steps to calculate how much life insurance you might want to consider having right now. All right, so like I said in the beginning of the video, we're going to talk about how much life insurance that you might need, and we're going to walk through 7 simple steps to kind of give you a rough idea, or for most people, a rough idea how much life insurance that you ought to consider buying if something happened to you and you died. So now before I go through these 7 steps, there's 3 things I want to talk about that will affect how much life insurance that you might feel you might need, regardless of what these numbers say. So I kind of want to get those out of the way just to kind of talk about them a little bit. The first thing I've noticed is over the years is that a lot of times people buy life insurance because they love people, and if the worst happened to them and they weren't here, they want to provide for them in some way, and the best way to do that is through financial support, through money. So if you're in a situation right now where you don't have anybody dependent on you, or there's nobody that you care deeply about, well, then that's going to affect your attitude toward how much life insurance that you feel you need. And so a lot of times I hear people say, I don't need no life insurance. Why do I need life insurance? And a lot of times I kind of translate that into, there's nobody I really care about right now that I'd want to take care of that's important to me. So that's the first factor that's going to affect what's going on in terms of amount. Now, the second thing that people I've heard of quite a bit over the years is that when you look at life insurance numbers, they can kind of get up there in terms of an amount. And sometimes these amounts are kind of high, and it looks like, wow, that's a lot of money. Why would I want to give away that much money if something happened to me and I die? People go, well, I'm worth more dead than alive, and so I kind of always joke, I'm surprised you're still around. But all kidding aside, the phrase I hear most often is that I had to start from scratch, and my grandparents had to start from scratch, and their grandparents had to start from scratch. So if something happens to me, they can just start from scratch. I don't care. And so I understand, where that's coming from. In some ways it's like, everybody should have a work ethic, and everybody should work for what they get, and nobody should be given anything. And so, I understand that kind of thinking. But the problem with that is that with every succeeding generation, it gets harder and harder and harder for every single person to start from scratch. And that's why people that have money continue to have money, and people that don't continue to not have money, because the people that have money, they continue to pass it on. They build something for every succeeding generation to build off of. And if everybody kind of has to start from zero every single time, then it's a long way to go to build something up that everybody can kind of count on, I guess. So I would encourage you to kind of not try and make everybody start from scratch, I guess. The third thing that will affect, ultimately what the amount of life insurance that you'll end up getting is the amount of premium that you can afford. So, you might need, X amount of life insurance, but if you can only afford this much, well, regardless of whether you want to do it or not, this is all you're going to provide. And there's nothing wrong with that either. That's okay. So let's talk about the 7 steps with that stuff out of the way. Those are 3 things that I think that affect people's need for life insurance, kind of outside the calculations. So the first thing you need to add in is for final expenses. So if the worst happens, somebody has to pay for a funeral, and when anybody dies, there's a funeral. So even kids, unfortunately, you still have to pay for a funeral, and that money's got to come from somewhere. And I've heard of people, they're not having the money, and what are they going to do? And as much as we'd like to say, well, they can just bury me in the backyard in a pine box, legally you can't get away with doing that. I mean, you can't just throw somebody in a dumpster just to save money. That might look kind of like a crime. But anyway, as final expenses go, in my neighborhood right now, this area that I live in, it would be probably $10,000 to $15,000 for a funeral. Maybe you can do it for less if you do cremation or something, cut corners somehow. But it's a good idea to provide for final expenses, whatever that number is. The second thing that I would add in is, your mortgage. So if you have a mortgage, I would factor that in. And so if you have a couple $100,000 mortgage and somebody's got to live in the house that, the payment's got to be made if you're not there and it was going to come out of your pay, well, if you could get that paid off so that it's not worried about, I would strongly consider making sure that, the mortgage is paid off. And on top of that, the third thing I consider is any other debt. So auto loans, credit cards, student loans, even depending on the type that they are, any kind of debt that you owe, you'd want to make sure that that was something that you considered paying off if something happened and you died, so that people wouldn't have to worry about paying those things back. Now, after that, if you've got family, you might want to consider, providing money to help, your kids go to college. And college isn't cheap. College is crazy expensive. I was looking the other day, and just for 1 year of college at a state school, calculating in everything that they say you might need to pay, it was like 25 grand, which means to pay for a 4-year college is like $100,000 just to go to college. Now, obviously, you could probably do it cheaper, hope people get scholarships, but in the long run, a lot of times, that just doesn't happen. So if you have more than one kid, I right now factor in $100,000 a kid that you might have to provide for if you're going to help them go to school. So the fifth thing that I would consider adding in there is some sort of income. Life insurance is really just income replacement. And, if you die when you're 30, there's 35 years worth of income that's just gone that you would have earned had you been here that could be used to build a sizable estate. And if you're not here to grow it, well, then that's just income that's just that's lost, that can't be captured and can't help the people that you care about. So if you wanted, you could provide income in perpetuity and take, let's say you made $50,000 and divide it by 4%, and that's how much of a fund you might want to have. But sometimes, that number is a big number. And so, maybe you might want to provide it for a certain number of years, like for 5 or 10 years or something like that. And, I think a lot of times people say, well, if something happens to me, my spouse can just remarry. But I know my dad died when I was in junior high, and my mom never, ever remarried. So it's not a given that, people will just remarry just to help take care of financial expenses. All right, so those are the first 5 things that I would add in. Now, once you've got a total there, then what I would do is subtract out any cash that you got. So if you've got money saved up in a 401k, in mutual funds, or in savings somehow, then you could take that away from the amount that you've come up with. And same thing, if you've got a certain amount of life insurance in force already, I would take that away too. Now, just setting aside for a minute, you might want to review, is that the right type, or, is that a good policy for a second? You could take that amount away, and that after those 7 things have been calculated, that would give you a number that you could say, okay, that would be the amount of life insurance I'd want to provide if I could. And so that's an easy way to calculate how much life insurance you might need. Final expenses, mortgage, debt, college, income, subtract out any cash you already got, any life insurance you have, and those are the 7 steps. So let me know in the comments how you feel about calculating out how much life insurance you need. And if you like this video, hit the like button. And if you're not a subscriber on YouTube, I'd encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. That way, if later you're trying to figure out where I'm at, you've already subscribed to me and can find me in your subscriptions. So I hope that helps you out, and I'll see you in the next video.